Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. Null default values and @JSON include in JSON, a comprehensive tutorial. JSON, a popular Java library for processing JSON, provides powerful mechanisms for controlling the serialization and deserialization of Java objects into and from JSON. One important aspect of this control is handling null values. This tutorial will delve deep into how to use JSON's @JSON include annotation to manage the inclusion or exclusion of fields with null values during JSON serialization, along with the implications and best practices. We'll also explore related concepts like default values and how they interact with @JSON include. Understanding the issue, default serialization behavior. By default, JSON serializes all fields of a Java object, regardless of whether they have null or non-null values. This can lead to JSON output that includes fields with explicit null values, like this. While this is valid JSON, it might not be desirable in all scenarios. You might want to reduce the size of the JSON payload by omitting null values, or you might have an API requirement to exclude them for clarity. Introducing @JSON-include annotation. The @JSON-include annotation is JSON's primary tool for controlling which properties are included during serialization. It's part of the comfasterxml.json.annotation package and provides fine-grained control over how null values, empty collections, and other empty-like states are handled. Key @JSON-include values *. The @JSON-include annotation takes a single argument, value, which is an enumeration of type JSON-include. Here are the most commonly used values. *JSON-include.always, this is the default behavior. All properties are included, regardless of their value, even if null. *JSON-include.non-null, properties with null values are excluded from the serialized JSON. This is a very common and useful setting. *JSON-include.non-absent, similar to non-null, but it also excludes fields that are null and have been declared as optional, Java 8+. Useful when working with optional to avoid serializing missing values. *JSON-include.non-empty, excludes properties if they are null, empty strings, empty collections, example list, set, map, or empty arrays. *JSON-include.non-default, this is where things get interesting when considering default values. It excludes properties whose values are equal to their default value according to Java. For primitive types, the default values are 0 for int, 0l for long, 0.0 for double, false for boolean, etc. For objects, the default value is null. It is rarely used, as it's often not what developers intend. We'll demonstrate why later. *JSON-include.use_defaults, this is effectively the same as always. Applying @JSON-include. You can apply @JSON-include at different levels. One class level, applies to all properties of the class. 2 field level, applies only to a specific field. 3 getter method level, applies to the getter method of a property. Code example, illustrating @JSON-include. Let's create a simple person class to demonstrate how these values work. Now, let's serialize a person object with different @JSON-include settings. Output *. Explanation of the output *. Default, always all fields, including city and address with null values, and is student with false, are serialized. *non-null, Class level city and address are omitted because they are null. Is student is included because even though its value is false, it's not null. Asterisk non-null, field level, city only. The city field is affected by the non-null setting. Address remains included even though it's null. Asterisk non-default, class level is student with a default value of false is omitted. City and address are still printed since their default value of null is assigned to them explicitly. Name and age are included as they are explicitly set. The nuances of non-default. The non-default option is often misunderstood. It does not exclude fields that haven't been assigned a value. Instead, it compares the current value of a field to the Java's default value for that type. So, *int age, initialized to 0 is considered the default. *string name, initialized to null is considered the default. *boolean is active, initialized to false is considered the default. Important considerations regarding default values. 1. Explicit assignment. If you explicitly assign null to a string field, non-default will not exclude it. It only omits fields that haven't been assigned a value at all and therefore have the Java default value. In the example above, we assigned null to city and address in the constructor, and because of that, the values are printed when non-default is specified. 2. Object initialization. When a Java object is created, its fields are automatically initialized to their default values. If you don't explicitly assign a value to a field of type string, its value will be null. If you don't explicitly assign a value to an int field, its value will be 0. Non-default will only exclude these fields if they were never assigned a different value. 3. Custom default values. If you have a custom default value for a field, example an empty string instead of null, non-default will not recognize it. You'll need a more sophisticated approach, such as a custom serializer, discussed below. Custom serializers, the power of fine-grained control. For scenarios where JSONinclude doesn't provide enough flexibility, you can create custom serializers. A custom serializer allows you to implement your own logic for deciding whether or not to include a field during serialization. Here's an example of a custom serializer that excludes fields if they are null or equal to an empty string. To use the custom serializer, you need to register it with the field you want to customize. And here's the test. Output. In this case, both null and empty strings are excluded. Best practices for handling null values and default values. 1. Choose the right JSONinclude value *. Carefully consider which option is most appropriate for your use case. Non-null is often a good starting point. Non-empty is useful for collections and strings where you want to avoid sending empty values. 2. Understand the implications of non-default *. Be aware of how Java initializes default values. Non-default may not behave as expected if you've explicitly assigned null or an initial value to a field. 3. Prefer explicit initialization *. If you have a custom default value that you want to ensure is never serialized, consider explicitly initializing the field to that value in the constructor. This is generally clearer than relying on non-default. 4. Use custom serializers sparingly *. While powerful, custom serializers add complexity to your code. Use them only when JSONinclude doesn't provide the necessary level of control. 5. Consider API contracts *. Think about the consumers of your API. Are they expecting null values, or will they handle the absence of a field more gracefully? Align your serialization strategy with the API contract. 6. Testing is key *. Thoroughly test your serialization configuration to ensure that null values and default values are handled as you intend. Conclusion. JSON's @JSON_include annotation provides flexible control over how null values and default values are handled during JSON serialization. By understanding the different JSON_include values and their implications, you can produce cleaner, more efficient JSON payloads that meet the specific requirements of your application. For more complex scenarios, custom serializers offer the ultimate level of control, allowing you to implement custom logic for deciding which properties to include. Remember to always consider the impact on your API consumers and test your serialization configuration thoroughly.